All right. Live on YouTube. It's not the Tom Green Show. It's the fucking news. Let's see what Caroline Leavitt has to say today.
Thank you for joining us early today. We have a very busy day, so
Thank
we
you.
wanted to kick off the week right this morning after a great trip last week. It's good to see all of you back in Washington. This afternoon in the Rose Garden, President Trump, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, will sign the Take It Down Act into law. First Lady Melania Trump was instrumental in getting this important legislation passed. The Take It Down Act will protect victims of digital exploitation, hold internet platforms accountable by requiring them to remove such imagery from their platforms, and provide justice for victims by allowing prosecutors to go after those who publish non-consensual explicit images online. The First Lady met with members in the House and the Senate, survivors and their families, and advocates throughout the process to get this bill across the finish line. We are grateful for the First Lady's hard work and dedication to this issue. And moving forward, she will continue to champion the well-being of our nation's children through her Be Best agenda. I know the president looks forward to signing
Did she say
bill
V
into law
Best?
later this afternoon, and we will see you all there.
Did she say through
In
her
other
V
news,
Best?
the One Big Beautiful Bill passed the
Is that a
House
very-
Budget Committee last night, bringing it one step closer to final passage. The One Big Beautiful
You can
Bill
see
is
what's
perfectly
happening
named because
on
it
YouTube,
represents
if
a
you want.
once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver on the Make America Great Again agenda responsible for President Trump's landslide victory on November 5th. The America First policies in this bill are the reason why Republicans currently have the majority in Congress right now. Passing this bill is what voters sent Republicans to Washington to accomplish. And that's why it's essential that every Republican in the House and the Senate unites behind President Trump and passes this popular and essential legislative package. This bill will be the single most pro-small business, pro-family, and pro-American worker legislation ever. This bill will give Americans the largest tax cuts in our nation's history. When Republicans pass the bill, Americans will be keeping more of their hard-earned money and taking home much bigger paychecks. The One Big Beautiful Bill will deliver some of President Trump's central campaign promises. No tax on tips for our hardworking
They're
waiters,
upset right now
waitresses, and
because
service
the Big
workers.
Beautiful Bill
No tax on overtime
did not get
for our
passed.
law enforcement officers, our firefighters, and all those Americans who are putting in extra hours to make ends meet.
Kind of makes you
And
wonder
a large tax
what
deduction
parts
on
of the
interest
bill
payments
she's
for
not
Americans
talking about.
who purchase
They
American-made cars.
lead the
Despite
conversation
desperate
with
Democrat lies, the biggest
talking about
beneficiary of this tax cut will be
how much
working
money
class
all the
and their
Americans will get
families.
back, but
Americans earning between $30,000
what else is in there?
and $80,000 per year will pay about 15%
maybe I'll do
less
maybe
in
I'll do a
taxes
deeper dive
after
into the
this
Big Beautiful
legislation
Bill.
is
We'll
passed.
look at what's in there that's
And
making
according to a
people
brand new paper from
say,
the White
hey,
House
hold on a
Council
second,
of
maybe not.
Economic Advisors, the average family with 2 children's take-home pay will be up to $13,000 higher.
Hello, Miami, Florida.
Because of the increase in wages and reductions in tax obligations. The CEA study also said that the average overtime worker receives a tax cut of roughly $2,000. Again, this is great news for our nurses, our police officers, and all those who work overtime to make ends meet across our country. Put simply, President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill will be a boon for working class America. This One Big Beautiful Bill is also pro-family. It will increase the child tax credit to $2,500 per child.
Hi, South Carolina.
Establish optional savings account for newborn babies with a $1,000 credit added, and strengthen paid family leave. This bill also delivers historic tax relief to America's seniors by allowing middle and low-income Social Security recipients to deduct an additional $4,000 in payments from their taxable income.
See, this all
If
sounds
Democrats
really
get their
good.
way and the Trump tax cuts
Why
are
did it
not
get shot
extended,
down? I
Americans
promise
will
you.
face
I
the
promise
largest
you.
tax hike
If it's
in
only good
history to the
things,
tune of $4
it wouldn't
trillion.
get shot down.
Republicans must not side with Democrats in helping them raise taxes. The One Big Beautiful Bill also provides critical
Raise
protections
taxes
of Medicaid,
for the wealthy.
which will strengthen and preserve the program for decades
Asterisk.
to come through common sense
For the
efforts
wealthy.
to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Medicaid will no longer be used to pay for barbaric gender mutilation procedures on minor children. And the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are currently improperly receiving Medicaid benefits will be kicked off the program to preserve it for hardworking American citizens who need it. President Trump and Republicans are protecting Medicaid benefits for pregnant women, children, disabled individuals, low-income seniors and families, and the most vulnerable Americans in our society. And that's what Democrats are so angry about. Basic Medicaid protections that
Something
will stop
tells
the
me
funding
that
of
that
transgender
is not
insanity
what
and illegal
Democrats are
aliens from
angry
ripping
about.
off American taxpayers. As you all know, over his first 4 months in office, President Trump ended the previous administration's open border crisis and secured our homeland in record time, all using executive authority. Now Congress needs to act.
You know what? Let's
One
just
Big
Google
Beautiful
why.
Bill is the most
Maybe it's out
significant
there
investment
already.
in our nation's border patrol and law enforcement agents in our nation's history. The bill ensures that President Trump's popular and successful border security measures are made permanent. Republicans have the backs of Border Patrol and ICE agents who were put through hell over the past 4 years and have quickly worked to secure our southern border. And that's why this bill gives them more resources to do their jobs, including a $10,000 much-needed bonus to ICE agents and Border Patrol agents over the next 4 years. To provide those brave agents with desperately needed reinforcements on the ground, the bill allows for the hiring of thousands of new ICE personnel, customs officers, and Border Patrol agents. These significant hirings will empower President Trump to continue delivering on his promise to carry out the largest mass deportation in the history of our country. Again, that is a promise that Republicans made to American voters. It's a promise they were elected on, and it's a promise Republicans on Capitol Hill need to keep: secure our border. To supplement those efforts, the bill's funds will fund the completion of President Trump's signature border wall. As a result, 701 miles of primary wall, 900 miles of river barriers, 629 miles of secondary barriers, and 141 miles of vehicle and pedestrian barriers will be constructed when this bill passes, along with cutting-edge technology to secure our homeland from dangerous illegal alien invaders.
The main reason the bill got shot down is because it will add quite a bit of money
has the necessary resources to remain
to our debt.
The strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world.
It's a large amount of money.
The construction of President Trump's
The
Golden
cost
Dome
of
to
the bill.
safeguard Americans from potential
Which, you know,
attacks.
I thought we were trying to
Give
save
the
money.
Coast Guard resources
Don't we
to
want to
build
save
more
money?
modernized ships,
You
and
don't
the
save
Air
money
Force
by
resources
spending a
to
bunch of money.
acquire better planes. If all of those incredible things were not enough, the big beautiful bill also finally modernizes air traffic control in America, a bipartisan issue. The bill will allow President Trump to deliver on his
You know, I
promise
love
to
a
overhaul
good,
and update
big,
our air
beautiful
traffic control
bill.
systems to keep Americans flying
However,
as safe and efficiently as possible.
You know, the real
The previous
problem with
administration
government
failed to
is
act
that a
and
lot
do
of
this
these
themselves,
things would
despite
pass.
repeated warnings from the GAO, which has
A lot of
resulted
these
in
things would
unacceptable
pass
delays
if
at
they
major
were
airports like Newark
individual
that the Trump
bills.
administration
You know what I
is working
mean?
hard to address.
If
When the one big
if it was
beautiful
just
bill
one
passes,
bill
we will replace
that was
the
just
current
about
antiquated system.
upgrading
The
air
FAA
traffic
will
control,
enhance safety in
it
our
would just
skies,
pass.
reduce delays, empower
The
people
problem
to
is
air
that
travel,
they
and
lump
invest.
all those things together.
Just
So
shows
if you
what
disagree with
historic
even
legislation
one
will accomplish.
thing,
It is absolutely
you can't vote on the whole bill.
Republicans unite
And then
behind the one big
Donald
beautiful
Trump, in my
bill
opinion,
and
has been
deliver
using
on
that
President Trump's agenda.
to sort of like
There
make
is
it
no
look like,
time
oh,
to
they're
waste.
voting down all these good
Americans
things.
gave
It's like, okay,
Republicans a
but
once-in-a-generation opportunity to course
there's some
correct
bad
our
stuff in
country
there, or
over
at
many
least some
wrongs over the past
expensive
4 years.
things
And
that they
Americans
can't
are
agree on.
counting on Republicans to work as hard as President Trump is in this White House every day on Capitol
Who said
Hill.
fuck you in my
Send
life?
this legislation to his desk
not nice.
as soon as possible.
I'm the only one that says the F word.
Here in our new media seat today, we have Liam Cosgrove, the White House correspondent for Zero Hedge. With that, Liam, please kick us off.
Also, who
Thank
were you
Carol.
talking to,
So,
Hinat?
First question's on foreign
You
policy.
talking to me?
The
Is someone in the
president
chat
has made,
pissing you
several moves
off?
towards peace in multiple fronts. India, Pakistan with the Houthis, talking with Iran, talking with Putin. Biden didn't even talk to Putin for the entire span of the war, which is crazy considering two nuclear powers were engaged in a proxy war. So I do admire
to see
these
you
moves
too.
by the current president, I'll be honest. However, as of today, we are still funding both Israel's and Ukraine's wars. So can Americans expect to finally be done financing foreign wars at some point? Do you consider that one of the president's goals?
Well, I think I can summarize the president's foreign policy agenda with 2 words: America first. And that means putting the American people and the American taxpayer first. And that's why the president is moving as quickly as he possibly can and working overtime to end these conflicts in both Israel and in Gaza, and also the Russia-Ukraine war. As you all know, the president will be speaking with Putin at 10 o'clock. He plans to call President Zelensky when that call concludes. I spoke to the president about that call at 10 o'clock. I don't want to get ahead of those very important conversations, but of course you will hear directly from the president or me after those calls conclude today.
There's going to be some big talk
as for Israel
between
and Gaza, the president
Trump and Putin, and then I guess Zelensky
not
afterwards.
Only himself, but his national security team engaged
really pushing for that
in
ceasefire
talks on both sides of this conflict. The president made it very clear to Hamas that he wanted to see all hostages released. And last week, when we were flying out of town, there was great news on that front with the return of Eden Alexander, who is the last remaining hostage in Gaza. So to answer your question, the president is always thinking about the American people, the American taxpayer first. He wants these conflicts to end, not just to save money, but most importantly, to save lives.
Thank you. And my only other question for you is, so over the weekend, President Trump posted Truth Social a video highlighting...
Wow, this guy got a great seat.
Body count, which is
right next to her.
strange number of suicides that seem to happen in Clinton
Who
circles.
is this guy?
I have a headline here from the Washington Post that said, Trump peddles false conspiracy theories tying the Clintons to several deaths. So I just wanted to highlight real quick, this wasn't in Trump's video, but this is from the Arkansas Times. And it's the death of Mark Middleton, who was a former Clinton White House aide, who was found dead on a Clinton Foundation property. And I'll just quote from the Arkansas Times. Middleton apparently shot himself in the chest with a shotgun and also hung himself from a tree with an extension cord. So I have no idea how somebody commits suicide that way, but if the Washington Post is here, maybe you can enlighten us as to how that was actually a suicide. So anyways, that's just a lead into my question about the most famous Clinton-related suicide, which is that of Jeffrey Epstein. There's still a lot of questions around that case. You've released
The fuck
phase
is this
one
guy talking
of
about
the
Jeffrey Epstein
files.
for?
What was missing from that is any connection to his ties to intelligence agencies, and that's really the whole story, that not just trafficking young girls, but doing it on behalf of intelligence agencies, and even potentially...
This is
as
the
part of a
longest...
black
You're not
ops
allowed to ask a question
with
this long.
potential ties to the Israeli government. So, for phase
Who let this
two,
guy
when
in?
can we expect it? Will it have information pertaining to those aspects of the Epstein case?
I know the Attorney General has committed to releasing those files. I would defer you to the Department of Justice on her timeline, but when she's made a promise in the past, she has kept it, and I'm certain that she will in this case as well. Rachel.
Thanks so much, Caroline. The president set a 2-week deadline for Ukraine and Russia to negotiate a deal. That time is now up. Does the president intend to set a new deadline on this call with President Putin? And how much longer is he willing to give these talks?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of the specifics of the conversation the president will be having with President Putin.
Yeah, the conversation hasn't happened yet.
But he has made
She's
clear
not
throughout
gonna
the
be able to
entirety of
answer any
this conflict,
questions.
Since he inherited it from Joe Biden, don't forget, this is a war that began because of the previous administration's incompetence and weakness, and President Trump is working very hard to fix it. He has made it clear to both sides that he wants to see a peaceful resolution and a ceasefire as soon as possible, but as for specifics on a timeline, I won't get ahead of the president.
And just on the goals for this call in particular, is the goal to get Putin to agree to a ceasefire? Is the goal to lead to some sort of in-person
I'm getting restricted on
negotiation
Instagram and
with the
TikTok.
Well, I think, again, we'll see how
so I'm gonna end these lives. Go to YouTube, youtube.com/KellermanComedy, comedy with a K if you want to see the rest.
With both sides of the conflict, the president and his team have put an enormous amount of effort in solving this very complicated war that, again, began because of the last administration's weakness.
Does he still want to meet Putin personally?
I think the president would certainly be open to that, but let's see how this call goes today.
What's the status of the secondary sanction package? The president's been talking about that. You haven't imposed them yet, but is that still on the table?
I think everything's on the table, yes, and again, I won't get ahead of the president in any commitments or decisions, but certainly it's something he's been looking at and discussing. Elaine.
Hi, Pat. I want to ask you about the House budget bill. So, does the president agree with Republicans behind this bill that Medicaid work requirements should be implemented as soon as 2026?
So the president wants to preserve and protect Medicaid for Americans who this program was intended for. The most vulnerable in our society: pregnant women, low-income families, seniors, those who truly need these benefits. And it should be going to people who physically cannot work. We want to see able-bodied Americans at least working 20 hours per week, whether that's part-time or full-time, whether that's even looking for work or volunteering for 20 hours a week if they are receiving Medicaid. These are common sense provisions. These are common sense changes that were actually introduced by former Democrat President Clinton. They've been supported by every Democrat president since, including the previous president, Joe Biden. But again, these are common sense reforms to ensure that those that this program was intended for receive those benefits.
And then just a quick follow-up. Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion. And the president absolutely understands and hears the concerns of fiscal conservatives and of Americans who want to get our fiscal house in order. That's what the intention of this bill is. There's $1.6 trillion worth of savings in this bill.
Okay.
It's the largest savings for any legislation that has ever passed Capitol Hill in our nation's history. The next bill that even comes close was $800 billion. That's less than half of the savings that we see in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so the goal of this bill is to produce economic growth, to cut taxes, and to get our fiscal house in order. And this is the right step.
I'm so confused. Cutting taxes doesn't decrease the debt or deficit.
Reaction to Moody's downgrading the credit rating.
Those two things don't go hand in hand.
Sure. Well, look, the president
You add debt or
talked about
deficit
this over
when
the
you
weekend. The Secretary
cut
of Treasury also talked about it.
funds,
When you look at the
such
world,
as taxes.
the world has confidence in the United States of America and our economy once again. The president just last week.
People are being
secured
censored on
trillions of
YouTube,
dollars
they're
in
saying in the
investments from
comments. People are
countries
being
in the Middle
censored.
East.
What
We
are you
have
trying to
seen
say
trillions
that
of
you can't
dollars of
say?
investments flowing into our economy since the president took office. That is because America, people around the world have confidence in the United States of America. And if you also just look at the raw economic data that we're seeing, last week when we were out of town, inflation dropped once again. Oil prices are dropping, gas prices are dropping. The president has added nearly 500,000 jobs to the American economy already. So there's a lot of optimism in this economy, and the president disagrees with that assessment.
And I want to ask you one more thing, if I could. On your Middle East trip, the United Arab Emirates is getting some of the most advanced AI chips, and there's agreements there. The UAE is the newest member of BRICS. Is there a concern from the president that those chips and the technology will pass through to China, India, Russia, and Iran?
Part of going to the Middle East was to ensure that the United States, this part of the region, our Gulf partners, know that the United States of America is there for them again, and that they should be investing in the United States, not in China. And these AI agreements, particularly the one the Secretary of Commerce signed in the UAE, has security guarantees to ensure that China is not getting the advantage, but the United States is getting the advantage when it comes to AI, and that the UAE and the US are working hand in hand together to invest in this space. So read the agreements, there are security guarantees, and this was a great trip for the country, no doubt.
Yeah, people are saying that they haven't noticed any price drops. It's because the price drops are at the wholesale level, right? So when the grocery stores buy eggs, it's cheaper for the grocery stores to buy eggs. So far, not many grocery stores have passed that savings down to us, to the regular people.
Speak on that. The president has made it very clear
That's
he wants
that's
to
why
see
we're not
this
seeing
conflict
price
in the
drops.
region end. He
Gas
wants all hostages
coming
to be
down
released.
huge by the
Please,
barrel.
that
At the gas
Leon
pump,
Alexander
not
was
so
returned
much.
home safely to his loving family. The president spoke
So,
with Eden directly.
we're being price
while we were
gouged.
traveling to the Middle East last week. As for the prime minister's comments, I'll let the president.
And
himself
in case there's
respond.
any confusion, we're not being price gouged by the government. We're being price gouged by individual businesses or big businesses for that
Talking
matter.
to House members about the bill over the next couple of weeks or the next week.
Sure. Well, over the weekend, the president was in direct conversation and communication with the Speaker of the House. He's been very involved. He always is. He's willing to pick up the phone when he is asked to. So he'll continue to be very engaged in this process with both House members and his friends on the Senate side as well.
And on former President Biden's cancer diagnosis, the president put out a very nice message on Truth Social. Has he talked to President Biden directly? Does he intend to call? What does he?
Yeah, Trump did put out a really nice
Not to my
message
knowledge,
to the
I don't believe they
Bidens.
have spoken,
'Cause,
but
they're all
the president
friends.
would be open to doing that. I spoke to
And
him last night about
he
the,
didn't call him
former
Crooked
president's
Joe or
cancer
anything in the
diagnosis,
tweet.
and,
It was
The
wild.
statement that he put out was the initial reaction he had with me on the phone as well. Peter.
Follow up on former President Biden. White House doctors may have missed the early stages of his prostate cancer. So, is President Trump worried about the quality of care that presidents get here?
Not as far as President Trump is concerned. The White House physician we have here is phenomenal, and the team of physicians that take care of the president particularly at Walter Reed Medical Center, are great. The president had his physical recently, as you know. He had perfect results. He's in very good shape. I think those of you who traveled to the Middle East with us last week can attest to the president's endurance. And by the way, I will add, we returned home from a very long and tiring trip last week. And on Saturday, where was the president? In the Oval Office working all day. He doesn't stop, he doesn't quit, he's in great health, and he trusts his
His
physician.
stamina is pretty
Two things.
impressive,
Putin
regardless
ghosted
of
everybody
what you think of him.
at these peace talks last week. As President Trump phones him today to try to figure out an end to the Ukraine war, does he think that Putin is the good guy or the bad guy?
I'll let the president speak on that conversation later. He's made his feelings about both sides of this war quite clear throughout it. He wants to see it end.
And
Annie,
the
go
last
ahead.
one, what does President Trump mean when he says that Taylor Swift...
Oh, she called on
is
someone
no
else and he was like, no, I've got more questions.
Look, he is speaking about Taylor Swift's political views and how perhaps it has impacted the support of the American public for her work, and I will leave it at that. Annie, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. I'm just going back one
Who
more
cares
time
about Taylor
to the
Swift?
White House Medical Office, because there seems to be some question about this with regard to President Biden's screening. Can you say whether or not President Trump is screened for prostate cancer as part of his physical?
To the best of my understanding, he is, but we can certainly check in with the White House physician and go back and look at that physical report.
And then just one other question.
But why would
recently,
we?
Stephen Miller at the White House made some comments about considering suspending habeas corpus. And I'm curious if there's any update on how the White House is exploring that option to enact the president's agenda.
I don't have any update at this time, but I can check in with our Deputy Chief of Staff. Mary Margaret, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Given the ongoing revelations about former presidents' mental acuity and how staff and media covered that up, especially with the release of this book, 2 days, I think, is there any interest in further scrutiny of Kevin O'Connor, the former president's physician?
I'll let the president speak on that. I spoke to the president again about the former president's health diagnosis last night, and he wanted to extend his warmest wishes to the former president and his family. But as for any further action, I'll let the president speak on that first. Michelle.
Vice President Vance's meeting with Zelensky. Can you share any more information on that?
My understanding was it was a good meeting, a productive meeting, and we're grateful that the vice president did it and that he also went to the Pope's first mass
no
in
information.
Rome. I also have an update on that. The vice president passed along a letter to the Pope from the president and from the First Lady extending their warm wishes and inviting them to the White House as soon as they possibly can come. Michelle.
On Iran, Steve Witkoff said yesterday that continued enrichment is a red line for the U.S. The Iranian foreign minister says that's going to continue no matter what. How committed is the U.S. to that red line, and what's the next step for the next round of talks?
We are 100% committed to that red line. The President, Special Envoy Witkoff, Secretary Rubio have made that incredibly clear, not just to the American public, but also in those discussions that Special Envoy Witkoff has had directly with the Iranians.
And the next round of talks?
I don't have an update for you, but we can get one. To the back row. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. South Africa's president says he's going to come to the White House to meet with President Trump on Wednesday. What are the president's expectations for that trip? And South Africa's president recently said he believes the folks that have been resettled here recently are cowards running away from problems in South Africa. Does the White House have a response to that?
So I did see the South African president put out that statement. I want to confirm on our end with our Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, and we'll get back to you on that. Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. You mentioned the President and the First Lady are signing a historic down this afternoon. I'm curious to know, what are some of the repercussions or consequences for these online platforms or perpetrators that won't comply with the act?
Well, what this bill does, it takes the initial step to ensure that prosecutors are able to take down, that's why it's called the Take It Down Act, platforms that are allowing this sexually explicit content on their platform. So it gives them more leeway to go after them as they see fit. But as for specific repercussions, I would defer you to the Department of Justice of how they plan to implement this bill once it is signed later today.
The bill they're talking about will be announced and signed later today.
Savings account, exactly how would that work? Who would be eligible for it? I'm assuming women would be eligible for that.
Yes, so One of the provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill, as I said, this is a very pro-family piece of legislation. Not only does it increase the child tax credit, but it also includes MAGA baby savings accounts for children that are born before January 1st, 2024, under 8 years old, U.S. citizens, and have at least one parent with a valid Social Security number. And when this tax provision becomes law, the child, if the parents seek to do this, will be set up with a savings account. Essentially, it's a 401k for a newborn baby, and child's relatives, their parents, can contribute up to $5,000 per year of after-tax dollars annually to that account. And then later in the baby's life, at age 25, savings account holders can withdraw up to the full balance of the account. Upon reaching 30, the account holders can access the full balance of the account for any purpose desired. So it's a great initiative for new parents, new mothers who want to set up this savings account for their children. Ouija.
President Trump and his top economic aides have repeatedly
That's
said that
good, but
Americans
I'm a
will
little
not
confused
pay the
because
cost of tariffs. In fact,
doesn't that already
last week,
exist?
people have to drop the, quote, silly
I'm pretty sure
argument that
savings
consumers
accounts
will
for
pay,
children already
the
exist.
cost. But over the weekend, as you know, the president posted that Walmart should eat the tariffs and not charge the value customer anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So does he acknowledge that if companies don't absorb the full cost, Americans will have to pay?
Well, first of all, the CEO of Walmart made those comments about the tariffs on an early earnings call where CEOs, I believe, are legally obligated to give the most dire warnings and forecasts to their investors and stakeholders. The reality is the president has always maintained Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of these tariffs. And that is why China was so quick to hustle to the negotiating table with the United States of America. They need our markets, they need our consumers.
Hold on.
Again,
first of all,
the inflation
China was not quick to hustle to the negotiating table.
Because energy
Okay,
prices
we
are
were all
dropping
there.
Across the board in this
It was
country
weeks with no
because of the president's
negotiations.
robust,
Second of
energy
all,
agenda that he has taken since January 20th.
Earnings
The
calls
president
with
is committed to
companies are
ensuring
not.
that prices remain low.
They're
for
not
American
legally
consumers,
obligated to
and he
tell you
maintains
the
position
worst
that foreign
possible
countries
case
will absorb
scenario.
What does he mean by all
They're telling you what's going on.
He'll be watching, seeing what they're doing.
Third of all,
On the gift claim from Qatar, three things. Is there a timeline for the U.S. receiving that claim?
Trump put out a statement that was like, Walmart should eat the cost, which tells me that Walmart does not have to eat the cost. China doesn't have to pay these tariffs. It does get passed on to Walmart, and potentially it will get passed on to Walmart's customers.
I was watching the American press spew a lot of misinformation about
Trump wouldn't have to put out a
donation
statement saying,
last
hey,
week
Walmart
when we were
should
abroad.
eat the
Let's be very
tariffs.
clear. The government of Qatar,
If they just had to
Qatari
eat the
family
tariffs,
has
then that tweet would have never
offered
been
to
necessary.
Donate this plane to the United States Air Force, where that donation will be accepted according to all legal and ethical obligations. It will be retrofitted to the highest of standards by the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. This plane is not a personal donation or a gift to the President of the United States. And everyone who wrote that last week should go and correct their stories, because this is a donation to our country and to the United States Air Force. As for a timeline, because it is the United States Air Force.
Why would it go into the
accepting
Trump
plane and
library
referring to
after
them for
his
specifics,
presidency if
because
it
the
was
president,
a gift
frankly, has nothing
for
to do with it. It's
just
Air
the U.S.
Force's
government?
project to take on. Sure. Elizabeth.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Did the president call fiscal conservatives who are hesitant to vote for the Big Beautiful Bill? And if so, what did they say? What did he say?
I don't reveal the president's private discussions unless he gives me the liberty to, but he has been engaged in this process. He spoke to the Speaker of the House, and he will continue to make those phone calls if it's necessary for him. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline.
I'll go to both of you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Any updates on Greenland? Will the president be making any trips, and do we have any details you can share with us?
I don't have any future foreign trips to read out for you. We just returned home from one. But the president maintains the reasoning for Greenland's strategic purposes in the Arctic. And he continues to remain committed to the idea of obtaining Greenland in whatever means we can to advance our national security interests in the region.
Why are people even still asking about it? Greenland has very firmly stated they are not for sale. They do not want this.
To my knowledge, the president did not meet with any representatives from Lebanon, although he did talk about the election that they recently had there and how he hopes that Lebanon can come to a more peaceful place in their country and that we drive out Hezbollah, Iranian-backed Hezbollah proxies in Lebanon to ensure peace and prosperity in that country and also for the greater Middle Eastern region. And I would just add to that before I wrap up, because the president's call will begin in a few minutes. The president's historic tour to the Middle East last week truly reset our foreign policy agenda in that region. I think actually, in fact, the Washington Post had a headline, President Trump remakes U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. And that's absolutely true. He took a courageous and bold step to lift sanctions on Syria. He strengthened our ties with our Gulf partners, and he put Iran into a very difficult position because the United States of America is back. And I will summarize the president's trip with an anecdote that I heard directly.
It's a tricky situation over there.
One of the foreign delegations.
It's hard to say whether lifting sanctions on Syria is good or bad. If it puts pressure on Iran, that's obviously good.
He told me when President Trump won the election, it was like the lights turned on in a dark room. For the past 4 years to the rest of the world, America was dark. We were unresponsive. We did
not to the rest of the world, but definitely to a lot of Middle East people.
And I think
Saudi
the world
Arabia
saw that last week with this historic and wildly
not
successful
allies
trip.
were
And the work
that I
continues.
think
The
we're
president will be
particularly
speaking
proud
to
of.
President Putin at 10 a.m. and we'll have a readout for you after that call. And we'll see you in the Rose Garden at 3 o'clock. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caroline.
All right. Well,
Iran into a very difficult position.
just put a little background here on
Change
here.
Putin at 3 o'clock. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caroline.
Well, there you have it. Today's press briefing. Very interesting. Very interesting. It's I'm gonna put out an episode soon, going over a bunch of stuff that happened over the weekend, and then later, I'll try to make another episode today about today because there's even more things happening. There's a lot of shit going on, guys. I'm gonna get out of here, but before I do, how's everybody doing? You doing all right? I know it's Monday. You gotta get back to work. Some of us. Hopefully, this didn't aggravate you too much. Melanie in the comments is saying she's aggravated. But oh well. It's fine. It's fine. Look, we're gonna be okay, guys. Everything's gonna be fine. And, yeah. Make sure you're following me on all the things, especially Substack. That's an important one, you know? I'm going through a lot of life changes right now. I just moved. Really, really need the support. So make sure that you are, like, sharing everything on social media, following me on Substack. Donate whatever you can. I hate. Nobody should have to pay for anything, but you know, it's how we all make the world go round. So, have a lovely day, and I'll be back to ruin it later.